This record comes from Suryara. What follows is an observation. I left the eastern settlements and traveled west. I needed to see that if what I had been watching was specific to one place. It wasn't. If you've never been to this part of Suryara, it's difficult to describe without it sounding like an exaggeration. The ground is white, completely white, flat in every direction, as far as you can see. No trees, no grass, no landmarks. Just salt crust stretching out until it meets the sky. During the day, the heat rises off the surface in waves and the horizon disappears into light. You lose your sense of distance here. You lose your sense of scale. It's one of the strangest places I've ever stood on. The communities out here don't farm. They can't. Nothing grows in salt. They work the flats themselves, extracting salt, reading the ground, timing everything around, when the surface is dry enough to walk on and when it isn't. I spoke to a man who had worked these flats his entire life. He knew the ground the way the water keepers back east knew their basins, not from studying it, just from being on it every single day. That's when he pointed one out to me, Saltorr. I'd almost walked past it. It looks exactly like a natural salt formation, just a rough mound sitting on a flat surface. Until it moves. He laughed at my reaction. You learn to look from ones that are slightly too even, he said. Natural formations crack differently. Salter doesn't just live here. They're part of how the flats work. Their bodies pull moisture from the air at night and freeze it into their core. During the day, that moisture slowly releases back into the ground underneath them. It's a small thing, but across an entire salt flat, dozens of salt are doing this every single night. It keeps the crust from drying out too fast, keeps it stable, keeps it walkable. Workers out here have always known this intuitively. They don't harvest near salt or clusters. They just don't. Nobody told them to, it's just understood. We were standing there, and he went quiet for a moment. Then he said, they've been clustering differently this past season, moving towards the edges. I asked him what that usually means. He shrugged. When they move towards the edges, it means the center is drying, faster than it should. He said it without alarm, like it was just information. But he was watching the flats differently after he said it. I could see that. Ground drying faster than it should. I've heard that before. Not in those words, but the same idea. A system losing stability faster than the season should be causing. Back east, it was water basins. Here, it is salt crust. Different terrain, different Pokémon, different people. But the same thing. Later that evening, as the heat finally broke, I saw Himble moving across the flats. In the cooler air, their fur catches the last light of the day. In a way that's hard to describe, like someone embroidered the surface of the salt flat and it started walking. Normally, they move in loose, unhurried patterns, grazing the edges, drifting back towards center. Tonight, they weren't drifting back. They were staying at the edges with Saltor. I stood there watching them for a long time. Back east, Magritte tightened their patrol around the water source. Ghastrock repositioned towards the water's edge. Aqualith moved between basins that weren't holding. Here, Saltor clustering at the edges, Himble not returning to center. They're doing the same thing the eastern Pokemon were doing, pulling back toward whatever still feels stable, away from the middle of a system that's losing its hold. I asked the salt worker before I left if anyone else had noticed. He thought about it. People noticed, he said. But the flats always have seasons of their own. People assume it corrects. I walked back across the white surface as the light disappeared. The flats were completely silent, no wind, no movement, just solder at the edges, and the center of the flat quietly, slowly drying out. The same thing, somewhere completely different. That's when I stopped thinking that this was about one place.